Welcome. This is the Meet the Disruptors, Innovators Driving Change panel. We have with us from, I guess, my left to my right, Elie Finegold, Senior Vice President, Global Innovation, Business Intelligence, CBRE. Welcome.
Thank
we
you.
have with us next to him Alec, LeFort, Senior Director of Business Development of VTS.
Hello,
we have the legend himself, Duke Long, owner, broker of the Duke Long Agency. And we have with us from California, Mark Gilbreath, the founder and CEO of Liquid Space. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the disruption that you just discussed in commercial real estate on your panel. What were some of the highlights? Elie, let's start down there with you.
Well, I think that touching on the basic themes is really one of the most exciting things, because while we say it over and over again, and it's still important to note, the consolidation of capital and decision making across the real estate industry, the influx of mobility, and the availability of data is simply changing the way that real estate decisions are made. And it all comes down to, I think, what Mark Gilbreath said very well, which was the democratization of the decision making down to the individual. It's something new that we haven't really seen in real estate before, and it's leading us to some very exciting times.
Great segue, Mark. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, my takeaway is just one of continued enthusiasm. The very fact that an event like this can exist, because
agree.
there are 20 plus technology companies that are all acting on a massively needed space. And so I think, I'm just optimistic, right? We've got great technologies that are looking to improve upon the current systems and processes and bring efficiency, and then we've got technologies that are trying to really blow things up and create the next reality that goes beyond that. And I think there's a lot of room for a lot of winners.
Alec, let's move over to you. You're flying out of here shortly to go celebrate a 1 billion square foot under management in your software. Is that correct?
That is correct. And thank you for the plug. I love that.
I think it's a great plug, but it's also a good
Fantastic
testament, a good testament to you and what you got, your folks and your groups is doing. Talk about it from where you guys came from, where you got, and how you kind of see being there and yourself and everyone else. All these other companies.
Sure. So as I mentioned when I introduced myself, I've been with Nick, the founder, for 4 years. So before we had even a product, we were still in beta. And then we started as a video marketing platform. We had way larger ambitions and goals for the platform. And since we've expanded to being a full leasing and portfolio management software, we've noticed it's just the tip of the iceberg. Everybody here, everybody on this panel realizes that there's a ton of change, there's a ton of opportunity. And we've done, I think, in my opinion, a really great job to capitalize on a small portion of that. There's a lot of growth to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. But overall, I think it is a good plug and a good testament to just show how ripe the industry is, that we've had over 1 billion square feet of commercial assets commit themselves to us in a year. I think it just shows what the overall atmosphere of commercial real estate is, and the willingness and how happy people are to start to embrace change is going to, like I said earlier, that network effect and that widespread belief is going to elevate all of us and ultimately make this business much more efficient at the end of the day.
That's great. Mark, I want to turn to you because I've been following what you've been doing for quite a while, especially through social media. I consider you a pioneer of the commercial real estate tech space. So, a lot of these people are following behind you. What does it look like being, from one of the first to be in this commercial real estate tech space, and where you guys have come? You guys are all over the place, and seeing some of these new people come in.
I guess I'm humbled by that characterization. It's nice to not be alone anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Because certainly there's a rising tide phenomena, right? So when we were out there perhaps more pioneering 4 or 5 years ago, and actually the backstory for me is I've been working on this for 8 years. This is the second venture trying to crack the code. VCs didn't have a real estate tech strategy. It wasn't a theme that they invested behind. There was, the winds of change weren't blowing, and so there's a lot more evangelism, a lot more missionary work that you had to do. It gets easier now, right? With every amazing breakthrough, like 1 billion square feet at VTS, like it just legitimizes the space. WeWork announcements legitimizes the space, and so I think that's good for all players. It just gives us the size of the challenge is so large, $12 trillion asset class in America alone, right? There's so much work to be done. We need more resources flowing into it. People, capital, willingness to change.
Elie, from the CBRE side, it must be amazing from your perspective, being in tech and CBRE, seeing these guys doing their thing. What is it from your perspective? 1 billion square feet, been doing this for 8 years. We're a growing industry. It must be exciting for you. Talk about that.
Well, it's tremendously exciting, and I have a background in real estate technology, having started a couple real estate companies and started a couple real estate technology companies. and been around while we've watched several waves of innovation hit the industry and for the most part bounce off. I think the question for those of us who are trying to look at it from the across the industry perspective is this going to last? Are the waves this time going to sort of break over the barrier and create meaningful change in the industry? And part of that is simply discerning, trying to figure out what's simply because we're in a hot market on both the real estate and technology side, what of that is what's meaningful and what's actually just simply froth, right? I think that there is actual structural change on the cusp of happening in real estate. I think there's structural change on the cusp of happening in how real estate is transacted and managed and viewed and everything else. But certainly there's also a lot of froth around. And trying to figure those two things out is the challenge that we have as a company. Certainly, I think it's the challenge that everybody's going to have, and it will be interesting to see how things shake out. That said, I'm tremendously excited about what's happening now. The companies sitting here and many others around the country and around the world are bringing immense innovation. And one of the things that I think is often unremarked upon is, because I think it hasn't quite happened yet, is what's going to happen when there is pressure put on this market. And for the first time, possibly, the ability for these companies to begin to link up and create agglomerations of value when instead of just falling apart, it's a huge, huge win, and it could be something very interesting to watch down the road.
Right. Yeah, good point. Duke, you were with us in Boston. I being putting on the show, coming to Chicago, I'm not going to say that I'm surprised at the tech scene, especially the CRE tech scene here, but I'm extremely excited because there's so many companies here that's being represented by tech. What's your impression, coming here and seeing that same thing?
Well, it is building up. Just from Mark 8 years ago, now there's companies that are coming in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So I think it's fantastic. There's companies now that have been at it 7, 8 years. So it's fantastic.
I agree. Where is this industry going? I get a lot of time to spend with Duke Long. We talk a lot through, he's a great moderator. We really thank him for being a part of it. And we think that this isn't a bubble. We think that this is a new marketplace that's being opened for commercial real estate tech. So let's start here and go along. I mean, is this a bubble? Or is this a new marketplace? Is this only going to get bigger?
I'm gonna let me cite some recent data that I just saw. I think it was last week I saw it about Uber, that blew my mind. I knew they were headed here, but they've gotten here. So it was sharing the market sort of revenue data for Uber in San Francisco alone. It's $500 million of revenue in the city of San Francisco. Incredible. Now, the truly remarkable thing, though, is that the actual taxi industry, which has been around for 60, 80 years, the taxi industry in San Francisco is $140 million.
Wow.
So Uber, and when people were questioning their $17 billion valuation 6 months ago, and now it's $40 billion, people were saying, well, listen, you can't value them more than the taxi industry, because if they got 100% market share, that's what they could be. What they've demonstrated compellingly is that when old, inefficient business models that are tied to an asset class, like cars or real estate, get reorganized, you can actually unlock or create even larger industries when you repackage them. Uber took the familiar car, the black car, the taxi, and they turned it into a new industry that unlocked greater value. So I think, it's bubble in a frothy sense in that all technology is sort of in a dangerous bubbly sort of stage right now, given valuations. But I think that the size of the market that's being unlocked in real estate will be the largest transformation of any. It's going to be bigger than transportation. It's going to be bigger than residential vacation homes that Airbnb is exploding, right? So this is going to be the mother of all.
Wow. Duke,
Well,
thoughts?
Simply, I think maybe even, as he said, maybe there's a new market that's even being created that we don't even know existed. And Elie kind of talked about that a little bit. There's maybe an entirely new market.
So I think I'm going to agree with Mark, but I want to make sure, which is I agree that there are enormous value to be unlocked, and that the way in which we consume real estate is changing significantly enough that there are fortunes to be made as our society reorganizes around that paradigm. I don't know that. That said, our asset class is a little unique. It's not as flexible even as transportation and or homes, right? You have very, very significant structural stasis, for lack of a better term. And so I think that we need to be mindful that buildings turn over every 100 years. They don't turn over every 10 years like cars. And so I think that it's good to look at the upside, but we shouldn't assume that the parallel is going to be direct.
Can I do a footnote on that?
Yeah,
After
absolutely,
we
please.
go-
In addition to that, though, I do think that there is a bit of a bubble in the early stage funding of technology companies.
Mark,
and
let's get you.
particularly
I'm sorry.
real estate
Go ahead.
ones.
Yeah, Mark. Let's.
Well, in regards to the direct question around, is there a bubble? My answer is no. I think the companies that succeed and have shown that they have success, whether it's the beginning of success or they're further on along, like an Uber, the companies that are succeeding, those that get funding, I believe, do that for a reason. And I think there's much more of a focus on revenue now than there used to be. The tech bubble, it was, basically a complete detachment from reality. I don't think that is even remotely going on right now. Maybe prices are a little inflated, but there's still logic going on when it goes to fundraising, when it goes to partnerships, and when it goes to developing a business. And so if a product fits, you have users, and at the end of the day, you can generate meaningful revenue, it's what's going to win. And I think that's what's different about what's happening now. Like you look at Uber, you said, what, $400 million worth of revenue in San Fran, 500 alone?
500 million.
They did, that's a very legitimate business. It's not a concept.
Your footnote.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think I was going to predict that a year from now or 2 years from now, your event might have an opportunity to broaden its context. Because I think right now it's CRE tech, right? And so we're this new technology and the applications we're building are the front end of trying to unlock value and bring efficiency to this asset class. And Elie's right on. The building turns over every 100 years, and so it's got its own set of challenges. Here's my prediction. I think there's a whole ecology of sort of brick and mortar service providers. There's a new generation of architect who thinks about rebuilding a building rather than building a new one. Right. There's a new generation of industrial designer or interior designer that thinks about the reharvesting. So there was that question in the audience about partnerships and are they going to change and all. I think just as like in San Francisco, you've got the apps for food delivery. That's only half the equation. Now there's a whole new ecology of people that do that physical delivery. So I think there's a bunch of new opportunities that are coming right in the wake of the technologies that we're all building. Right. That are kind of on the street, in the building, down at the stud level. That has to get transformed as well.
I totally agree. I'm going to add this in. One of the things I was talking with one of the panelists is earlier, a different panel, and I think 3D printing. One of the things we're going to be definitely bringing this into our conference in another city is 3D printing, and I think it's going to unleash a whole new wave of entrepreneurs. Let's talk about from the designers. If I could 3D print your suits, your clothes that you're wearing exactly to what you're wearing, I could design it. I have a whole new customer, but where's my space? It's probably going to be an industrial building that is going to be more of a 10 by 10, and it's going to be like co-working industrial.
Elie and I talked about this at South by Southwest last year. There's going to be a big ass pipe flowing into Chicago that's flowing the polymer that can be turned into any building you want it to. That's the new distribution system.
So what if you have a part that you need printed? You're not going to have a warehouse for those parts. You're going to have a space for those parts. For a car, you're going to have stuff.
I spent some time up at the MIT Media Lab, which is where some of the most interesting and fascinating research in the world takes place on practical and applied science. And they are already building. They've taken a cherry picker, and they put a big, huge 3D printer on it, and they're now able to 3D print a house in 24 hours.
It's incredible.
And what they're doing is they 3D print a house, then they pour concrete in, let it dry, peel off the things, boom, right? All done. So it is here. It's also going to change the way buildings are built. It's going to change the way that supply. I think it's going to change the supply chain, and it's going to change the expectation. That said, there's still a ways to go. And if I have a 3D printer, or we do at CBRE Labs, CBRE has said we run a team that's called CBRE Labs, which is where we sort of do advanced technology research to try to figure out how this stuff is going to impact our world. And we have one. And it's really cool, and I printed some great Star Wars toys on it. But it's loud and it smells, and you need to have very specialized materials, and it's kind of difficult to figure out. And so it is coming, and it is already deeply impacting heavy industry. But it may not be here exactly tomorrow. So I think that we should all temper our expectations of rapid transformation, even though it will be significant.
Right. No, I totally agree. I like to call it, and this will probably be a shameless plug for one of the panels we'll put up. It's called the industrial revolution. I think that's where we're in, because it's going to be all about personal printing for what you need on the spot.
There's 4 high rises being built across from my house if there is any more dust, I will not be happy.
Right. So this is a great last question. We kind of got into it. What's next for Liquid Space? What's coming up on the horizon? What's next?
Liquid Space today has distinguished itself as the largest marketplace for, we'll call it high-frequency trading, durations of minutes to a day. What's next is longer than a day.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Let's go to Alec as the end user, or the
Sure.
company.
So VTS, obviously we have a long list of ambitions ahead of us. I would say initially we've tackled the leasing component of the transaction, and then it goes to the asset management, so managing cash flows and actually enabling property managers, asset managers, owners, and brokers to create an entire ecosystem where they can live and breathe all day long. So it's building out that second half of the puzzle.
Got it. Elie, we're going to go to you before we close with Duke. You just kind of, I believe, mentioned what you're doing at CBRE and what's next. What's next at big CBRE? What are you looking at? What are you looking at rolling out to people around the world, locally?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer simply because we cover so many different types of service across so many different geographies. One of the things for CBRE is our core focus is that you to build on the advantage of the platform that we have. And part of that means being always knowledgeable about what's on the bleeding edge, but also being cautious enough to ensure that we are being good fiduciaries to our clients and evaluating risk for them appropriately. So while we are embracing technology and we are making significant investments in technology across the board, and we're working with many of the fine companies that are here today in evaluating their products, we're also making sure that we're able to deliver that within the context of the end-to-end high-quality service that we provide for our customers, and has made us the largest and most respected real estate brand in the world. So that was kind of a backing away from the question.
Well, I kind of gave you maybe too broad of a question. So,
but we're right now. Where I sit, I get to play with all the new toys, and right now there are a lot of toys to play with.
yeah, that must be great. Duke, we're going to end with you again, kind of circling back. You have a great opportunity. You're in a position where you get to speak, and whether you're reaching out to them or probably more than likely they're reaching out to you. Who's next? And we don't have to talk about because they've already arrived, these two on our panel. Which company, you can give a plug, which company do you think is going to be the next one we're going to be talking about?
A company that takes real-time data and turns it into a commodity. That's the next company. And I think they're out there. I think the next company that takes that data and turns it into a commodity and takes it and sells that data. That's the next company.
Fantastic.
I think they're out there.
Well, listen, everybody, because around the world, he knows what he's talking about. So thanks so much. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. And we'll see you in the next panel.